Superman 4, his greatest adventure, the quest for peace.
Hey everyone, John from Let's Talk here, and today we're here to talk about the final film in the Superman 4K Blu-ray collection that just came out, and that's Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. And we're also going to throw a final grade on this new Superman 4K collection at the very end of this video, so make sure you stick around for the end of that. But before we dive into any of these reviews, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, some tech and game reviews along the way, and we do podcasts if you're a fan of all that, nothing helps this channel out more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So Superman 4 was released in the summer of 1987. It is directed by Sidney J. Furie. I hope I said that name right. If I did, that name is awesome. And it again stars Christopher Reeves as Kal-El, Clark Kent, and Superman, doing another phenomenal job. You get Margot Kidder back in a bigger role this time as Lois Lane, and you bring Gene Hackman back as the devilish Lex Luthor, and you get a new character in here starring John Cryer, and Nuclear Man pops up in this movie. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace is considered one of the worst films ever made, and unfortunately, I have to agree with them. After rewatching this movie, I was hoping to get a little bit more out of this. I've heard how bad it was. I remember seeing it and not hating it, but I was also a kid at the time, so you have to take that with a grain of salt, because this movie is definitely designed for kids and to get that message across. The only reason Christopher Reeves even came back for this movie is because they gave him $6 million, they let him do his pet project movie, and they gave him creative control, and he wanted to make a movie talking about the nuclear arms race that was going on here on planet Earth at the time, and he felt like that was a big message that we needed to get across, and Superman was the perfect character to do that, and I get that. You know, he's a squeaky clean guy, he's always going to stand up for the good of the people and what's best for the planet. But, you know, it just comes off overly cheesy in this movie, and then on top of that, they had so much production issues due to the Canon Films was making apparently 30 films at a time, and the budget for this movie was originally $36 million, and then they chopped that down to $17 million. They got a new crew in to do the special effects, and boy, does that show on screen. That is by far the worst part of this movie. This movie looks worse than 1978 Superman, when they were dealing with brand new technology. Everything about the flying scenes in this movie is 10 times worse. The lighting is just insanely off. You can just see that the direction of the lighting, the sun might be supposed to be to their left, but yet their faces are being lit by the right, and it just looks so jarring. Anytime Superman's in the air, his suit, the yellow changes to white, which is an issue that, you know, you would have in the 1970s. The original Star Wars film had this problem with R2-D2, where the color correction, just if you erase one color, sometimes it would erase all that color in the scene, so I guess they were trying to erase yellow, but unfortunately, it took off all of it. It took the yellow off his Superman logo and off his belt, and it is extremely noticeable, and once we get to the 4K review, I'm just trying to understand why they didn't fix that for the 4K Blu-ray.
I'm just trying to understand here.
Because that is a very jarring issue, and I feel like if you're going to go in there and touch this up, why not fix that? So the special effects are just god-awful. Nuclear Man is a pretty atrocious villain. This movie has plot holes galore. There's a scene in this movie where the guy who takes over the paper, Mr. Winfield, his daughter gets kidnapped right in front of him by Nuclear Man, taken into space, and he has to deal with the fact that his paper has just been bought from under him. Nobody in this lobby or on the streets or anything is bringing up the fact that Nuclear Man just kidnapped this guy's daughter and took him to space. No, he lost his paper and we finally stuck it to the man. That's more important than, you know, someone flying off into space. And forget the fact that, you know, she could breathe in space just fine, and, you know, any kind of space logic you ever heard just went out the window in this movie. Pretty much any logic went out the window in this movie. It's not all bad. I mean, for the most part, it's bad just because it's just illogical. This movie did have 45 minutes of film cut out of it because it screened really bad, but might as well just give us the full 2 hours and whatever it was going to be instead of the 90 minutes. I appreciate it being 90 minutes because it's a bad movie and I was in and out. You know what? It would have filled in some gaps that this movie just opened wide up. And then another issue is when we go back to Smallville, it's not the same Smallville. Apparently they still had access to the Smallville that we saw in, you know, the other Superman movies, and it was a prominent part of Superman 3 at that, so you would have thought that if it was available to them, why not go back, because it looks totally different in this movie. Smallville to me always had that nice green grass. Now it's like dirty western town, it almost looks like when they're in front of the farm. It just looked absolutely awful, but at least Gene Hackman still is pretty funny in this movie.
He's a little bit anxious. Can you blame him? Not one of your great thinkers.
He wasn't phoning it in. He actually still tried to give a pretty damn good performance, which is more than I can say for Christopher Reeves and Margot Kidder. They seem like they're phoning it in. It hurts me to say that because I do think Christopher Reeves is the standard of Superman. He's still pretty good, but I feel like because of all the production issues going on, and he, in his book, wrote about how hard it was to work on this film, and he regretted doing it, and it does show on screen. His Clark Kent persona, I feel it kind of took a back seat. He kind of really wasn't trying to, change his voice as much, probably just because it was a bad working environment, and it just shows on the screen, which is very disappointing if you're a fan of these movies. And it's just crazy to me. This franchise followed the same exact arc, I think, as the 1989 to 1997 Batman franchise, in the sense that the first two movies are considered classics, and then the third movie is, you either love it or you hate it. It has a cult following, so some people like it, some people hate it. I personally like both Batman Forever and Superman 3. I think they're both pretty good, but, it depends what side of the aisle you fall on that. And then the fourth film, Batman and Robin, in this case, Superman, The Quest for Peace, are both just universally panned and destroyed a franchise, and yeah, they both did that. Both took some pretty long gaps. We didn't get another Superman movie until Superman Returns in 2006, which isn't the worst movie. It just commits the ultimate movie sin of being insanely boring. So if you want to take a nap, go put Superman Returns on. Overall, this movie, it's just flat out bad, and that's really unfortunate. It's the one that killed the franchise. I really wish I could come on here and tell you that, I got something out of this movie, but I really didn't. I couldn't wait for it to be over. I was really just paying attention to the visuals and the audio quality just for the 4K review, but I was trying to get wrapped up in the story, but there would just be such leaps in logic and comedic moments that didn't make sense that it was really hard, and it wasn't even funny. Superman 3, I was laughing at it. I was having a good time. It's just crazy to think, yeah, given they sold the rights to a different studio, everybody involved is pretty much different. You had to twist the arms of all the actors to really come back to do it. It shows on screen, and that's really unfortunate. If you're going to skip any Superman movie in the franchise, this is the one. This is by far the worst Superman movie ever put to film. If you have to watch it, I feel bad, but you know what? Some people like to do full watch-throughs. If it was up to me, this is probably the last time I'll be watching Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and I feel bad about saying that. But let's dive into this 4K Blu-ray review. So this is going to be our final review in the Superman 4K collection, and we, just like all the other ones, you get nice individual packaging. It does come in that steelbook version, so if you have that, from what I can tell, that is the superior version as far as box design and art and everything like that, but this is still pretty good. You get a nice individual art design on the front of this, which I really do appreciate. Just like all the others, you get a red 4K and a blue Blu-ray, which is always appreciated. You get that nice box design, like I said in all the other reviews. Not a fan of this exterior box, but if you're going to always do those individually boxed and packaged 4K Blu-rays, I have no problem with the outside being not the greatest, because worst case scenario, I could take the Blu-ray, I could take the 4Ks out and throw them on my shelf, and just throw the exterior box out. I don't want to do that, but in a worst case situation, it is possible. So as far as packaging goes, I would always say go for those steelbooks. I think they came out a little bit better, and they seem to put a little bit more work into those than they did into this, but this is still not a bad design. And just like the previous 3 4Ks, this excluding Superman the movie, this is just an HDR10. It has a Dolby Atmos track on it. The menu system is just going to say English. If you want that DTS HD 2.0, which is the original audio of the movie, that's where it's going to say. It's going to say original English. If you want to watch it, it's original sounding track. But if not, that Atmos track is available to you. That's what I chose to watch it in, was in that Dolby Atmos track. And as far as the visuals go, it's definitely a beautiful looking 4K. I had no issues with the 4K itself. I had problems with the visuals of the film. The special effects are absolutely atrocious, like I was saying earlier in this review. The yellow on his suit when he was flying in space would change to white, and that's obviously the special effects team having an issue with color correction. They probably removed the yellow from the scene, and unfortunately that also would remove it from his suit. Now, it's 2023. These are new scans. Why didn't somebody go in there and adjust that? We have seen people go in and adjust previous movies. Obviously, the big ones are the Star Wars movies. We had plenty of stuff adjusted in there, and I know people got offended by a lot of the changes, but some changes were good and some were bad. Now, this is a movie that's universally hated. I don't think anyone would have been upset if you changed the white on his suit to yellow. I think people actually probably would have appreciated a little bit of extra effort, because, it's just very jarring and very noticeable, and it happens in multiple scenes. Obviously I get that you can't probably change the lighting from his skin tones. I mean, you probably could, but it probably could change, it probably would cost you a lot of money that they're probably not willing to spend, because obviously Warner Brothers did cut some corners on this set, and this is just another obvious corner that they cut. So it's very unfortunate in that area, but But if you take away the special effects, that isn't the fault of Warner Brothers here. It is a beautiful looking 4K, but the Blu-ray that's packed in here, which is a previously released Blu-ray in their previous released Superman collection, it's actually not a bad Blu-ray. So the Blu-ray jump to 4K isn't as noticeable as for Superman 3. If you have a previous Blu-ray, this isn't one where you're going to notice a big jump to the 4K because it's shot in 1987, so they were using better cameras, better lenses, and it just naturally looks better because, you know, it's been now 9 years since the original Superman movie, and they're using just a regular standard cinematography look. They're not going for anything that's too big or grand, so it does look like a really nice 4K. The HDR does do a good job. It is slightly better than the Blu-ray in the sense that, you know, it's a little bit brighter, the blacks hit a little bit deeper. It's not a flawless 4K by any means. I think it's still, you know, it's still got a little bit of problems, but I don't know how much of that really is the source material. Again, you're dealing with a studio that was struggling with money, so I'm sure that that played a part again with the source material. But it's still a very good looking 4K. It's probably the second best 4K in this set behind Superman 3. But what takes away from this movie is just how bad it is. So the 4K itself, even if it's a nice looking 4K, it's not a big jump visually. Now, audio-wise, it is a damn good Dolby Atmos track that's on here. Yes, it's not the greatest Dolby Atmos track, but it's probably the second or third best in this set, so it's a really good Dolby Atmos track. I'm really glad that they actually sprung for that. It doesn't seem like they half-assed the Atmos track. I was actually very surprised at how good the audio was in this movie. Again, you get John Williams back to do the score, so it does sound pretty damn good kicking through your system. You know, you don't get that epic feeling, but that's really just the film's fault, but it's not the fault of the Atmos track. It's still a really good Atmos track. And then just like every single other movie in this set, all of your extras are going to be on that Blu-ray disc, which are previously released Blu-rays, so you get no new extras. So all the extras that are on here, again, nothing new, previously released, all on that previously released Blu-ray that's packed in here. And you get, this one's the only one you don't get a making of documentary, probably because nobody wanted to see the making of this, but you do get a nice 50th anniversary like little documentary on here instead, and it's actually hosted by Dana Carvey, which is pretty damn cool. A young Dana Carvey, I think before Saturday Night Live Dana Carvey, so I thought that was pretty funny. You see him pop up doing the interviews and everything like that. It's about 40 minutes, but still pretty damn interesting. And then you get all the deleted scenes that were cut from the movie. So if you're trying to fill in the gaps, you could check out those deleted scenes, and maybe you'll enjoy them. I checked some of them out. I mean, I don't think they would have added anything to the movie, but if you want to see the first Nuclear Man, the prototype Nuclear Man, that scene actually is pretty funny with John Cryer and Gene Hackman, and that's on the Blu-ray disc if you want to check that one out. So, you know, the extras are in line with the other movies. I will say I would have liked more extras, but unfortunately we didn't get them in the set. But if we're just rating Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, if you were going to buy this individually, separate from the 4K set, if it ever gets released individually, which I did see it is kind of released individually in other markets, just not here in the US region. So if you want to just grab this individually, I would still give this a pretty solid 7 out of 10 because the quality of the 4K disc is pretty good. The movie is just absolutely terrible. I have to take a little bit extra points off than I usually would. You know, the lack of any new extras has been disappointing throughout the entire set, so I have to take points off for that as well. So overall, it's not the greatest in the franchise, obviously. It's actually the worst. And the 4K disc, though, it's still a good quality 4K disc that Warner Bros. Did put a little bit of effort into. They just cut some corners on the special effects that they probably didn't want to spend any extra money on cleaning up because they probably felt like, hey, it's Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Nobody is going to check this one out. They're buying it for the other movies. And it's a shame, too, because they skipped out on Superman the movie, giving that a brand new scan on this 4K set. Let's review the entire 4K set now that we have reviewed every single disc in the set. So overall, it's pretty good. I mean, if you don't own these, I definitely say you should upgrade. I think it's still an upgrade from the previous Blu-ray set because you get all those discs in this set and you get brand new 4Ks except for Superman the movie, which is by far the biggest disappointment about this set, that we didn't get a brand new scan of Superman the movie. That is a lot of people's favorite of the franchise, and I think they would have appreciated an upgrade from that 2018 scan, which a lot of people were disappointed by. And Warner Brothers had the means to do it, but I feel like just like in Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, they chose to cut corners and they just gave you what was previously released, so they saved money on both Blu-rays and on that original 4K disc. So the only things that get new 4K discs are Superman 2, Superman 2 the Donner Cut, Superman 3, and Superman 4 The Quest for Peace. And I actually think the best looking 4K in this set, and it's not really that close, is Superman 3. That is a beautiful looking 4K, almost flawless in both visuals and audio. You know, just no new extras on there. And if you enjoy that film, you're going to be really happy that you get a nice 4K in here. I personally did enjoy Superman 3, and I will be revisiting mentioning that one, so I'm very happy to own that in this set. But it's just, this set is just kind of all over the place. You know, some discs are better than others. You know, Superman 2, the 2 cuts of that, those are overall pretty damn good 4Ks, but they are also not the greatest 4Ks I've ever seen. So it's a shame that the best in this is a film that a lot of people aren't that big of a fan of. I know Superman 3 does have its fans, but it's not the biggest film in the franchise. So for that to be the best one in here, I think more people would have preferred it to be either Superman or Superman 2. But unfortunately, that's not how it played out. Now, the packaging, if you got those steelbooks, I really think that you're probably very happy with those, because those steelbooks coming in that big steelbook housing thing is awesome. I think if you got that, you're going to be a lot happier than I am with these. I am very happy with these. I'm glad that they're individually packaged. I just don't appreciate the exterior box. I think it could have been done a little bit better. You know, maybe giving us like a thick cardboard kind of deal that we've seen with other previous releases, a lot like what Universal does with their 4K release box sets. I think that would have worked out a little bit better, but unfortunately we didn't get that here. So I'm going to rate this out of 10 based on my packaging, not based on those steelbook packaging. If I was going to rate this entire Superman 4K collection 1978 to 1987, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I feel like it could have been done better, but it's not the worst. And right now, it's already dropped in price at the time of this recording down to $90. So it's at $90, it's not the worst. It's better than that Rocky 4K set in the sense that we get the Blu-rays with it. So you get the 4K and the Blu-rays, and you get the separate packaging for Superman 2, the Donner cut, and Superman 2, the original cut, and their own box design and everything like that. So I think doing that is a lot better than what Rocky did with the Drago cut and the original cut of Rocky 4 being packed in on the same exact 4K disc. The fact that they actually separated that, I think definitely does add to the price being higher, and I can appreciate that. So for 90 bucks, it's not the worst. It's a 7 out of 10 in my opinion. They could have done better. I think at the perfect sweet spot, if you're going to be buying these, is probably around 60 bucks, which I think they will probably drop to that price around the holidays, probably around Black Friday, or maybe even on Prime Day, which is coming up. That's a possibility. So I say if you're not in a rush to watch these on 4K, hold out. They probably will drop in price later in the year, and then that's when you scoop them up. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me on these reviews of the Superman 4Ks. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And then after you're done doing all of that, just simply go out in those streets and tell all your friends about us.